They sit on our shelves like old friends, their spines familiar, their titles a comforting echo from classrooms and quiet afternoons. We think we know them. We quote their most famous lines, picture their iconic characters, summarize their plots with confident ease. But what if these literary companions are shrouded in a haze of misconception? What if the stories we believe we know are merely reflections, distorted by time, popular adaptation, and the persistent whispers of myth? Tonight, we peel back the vellum, dust off the centuries, and peer into the shadows of misunderstanding that cling to some of the world's most beloved books. Prepare to question what you thought was gospel, for the truth inscribed on the page is often stranger, more complex, and far more fascinating than the legends that have grown around it. Consider Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The very name conjures an image, doesn't it? A towering, green-skinned brute, bolts in his neck, his vocabulary limited to guttural groans and monosyllabic roars. The quintessential monster, born of lightning and hubris. This creature stalks our collective nightmares, a staple of Halloween and horror. But open the novel. Turn to the words Shelley herself penned. Where is this mindless beast? Instead, you find a creature of profound intellect and agonizing sensitivity. He learns to speak, and not just speak, but to articulate his anguish with heartbreaking eloquence. He reads Plutarch and Milton. He yearns for companionship, for acceptance, for the very love his creator denies him. The true horror of Frankenstein is not a grunting monster, but the tragedy of a thinking, feeling being utterly rejected by humanity, driven to darkness by despair. The name Frankenstein, of course, belongs not to the creature, but to his ambitious, tormented creator, Victor. This single, pervasive error has reshaped our entire cultural understanding of one of literature's most potent explorations of creation, responsibility, and what it truly means to be human. The films gave us a monster, Shelley gave us a mirror. Now, let us travel to the fog-laden streets of Victorian London, to 221B, Baker Street. Sherlock Holmes. The deerstalker hat, the curved pipe, the almost casual utterance. Elementary, my dear Watson. These are the indelible hallmarks of the world's greatest detective. Or are they? Scour Conan Doyle's original canon. You will search in vain for Holmes explicitly saying, "Elementary, my dear Watson." Variations, yes. Elementary appears. My dear Watson appears. But the exact, iconic phrase? Largely a product of stage adaptations and later films, cementing itself in the public consciousness so firmly that its absence from the source material feels almost impossible. And the deerstalker? While Holmes was indeed a master of disguise and practical attire, the specific image of the deerstalker cap was largely popularized by illustrator Sidney Paget, who often depicted Holmes in this headwear for his adventures in the countryside. In the urban labyrinth of London, Holmes was more likely to don a less conspicuous hat. These are not grave sins, perhaps, but they illustrate how easily visual shorthand and popular repetition can overlay the original text, creating an icon that is part true, part fabrication. The real Holmes is less a caricature, more a complex, sometimes melancholic, drug-using genius whose methods were as much about profound empathy and observation as they were about cold logic. And what of the glittering, tragic world of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby? Often distilled down to a doomed romance, a lavish cautionary tale about a mysterious millionaire pining for a lost love across the bay, symbolized by that enigmatic green light. This is the version many recall. Gatsby, the romantic hero, destroyed by his unwavering devotion to Daisy Buchanan. But to reduce Gatsby to a simple love story is to miss its devastating critique of the American dream, its hollowness, its corruption. Gatsby's love for Daisy is less about Daisy herself, and more about what she represents. An idealized past, a symbol of the status and belonging he desperately craves. He hasn't just built a fortune, has constructed an entire persona, a fragile illusion propped up by illicit gains, all in pursuit of a dream that was perhaps never attainable, or never truly pure. The green light isn't just Daisy's dock, it's the elusive promise of a future that's always out of reach, the orgiastic future that Nick Carraway muses on in the novel's haunting final lines. The myth of Gatsby as purely a tragic romantic lead sanitizes the novel's darker, more cynical exploration of class, illusion, and the decay lurking beneath the glittering surface of the jazz age. He is less a hero, more a tragic figure consumed by a flawed, ultimately empty, ambition. Even the bard is not immune. Think of Romeo and Juliet. The ultimate love story, right? Two star-crossed lovers, their passion so pure, so powerful, it defies their feuding families, culminating in tragic sacrifice. This is the dominant narrative, celebrated in countless adaptations. Yet, look closer at Shakespeare's text. While undeniably a story of deep affection, it's also a story of shocking impulsivity, of youthful recklessness, and the catastrophic consequences of rash decisions made in the heat of intense, almost unmanageable emotion. Romeo falls in and out of love with dizzying speed. Their entire courtship, marriage, and tragic end unfolds over mere days. The tragedy is not just that their families hate each other, but that these young people, swept up in a whirlwind, make a series of increasingly desperate choices with little foresight. The myth of pure, idealized romance perhaps overshadows Shakespeare's more nuanced commentary on the dangerous intensity of first love, the failures of adult guidance, and the destructive cycle of ingrained hatred. It's a warning as much as it is a romance. Why do these myths persist? Sometimes, it's simplification for mass appeal. Films need visual icons, digestible narratives. Sometimes, it's the game of cultural telephone, where details get lost or embellished with each retelling. Sometimes, the myths are simply more comfortable, more easily categorized than the complex, often unsettling truths the authors presented. But in clinging to these myths, we risk losing the richness, the depth, the challenging brilliance of the original works. We swap the author's carefully crafted vision for a faded photocopy. We miss the subtleties, the ironies, the uncomfortable questions these books dare to ask. The true adventure of reading lies not in nodding along to what we think we know, but in the willingness to be surprised, to be challenged, to see the familiar with new eyes. To brush away the cobwebs of assumption and encounter the text on its own terms. So, the next time you reach for a classic, or discuss a beloved story, ask yourself, is this the truth of the page, or the echo of a myth? For within those original words lies a power, a complexity, and a magic that no simplified legend can ever truly capture. The real story is always waiting to be rediscovered, if only we dare to look past the shadows.